Hello and welcome to Gravitas Wins Conversations. I draw a lot of inspiration from today's guest. You will not find another person with her energy, enthusiasm, and wide experience. I hope you will enjoy the conversation as much as I would do. Hello, Emmy. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Let's start with this, Emmy. What's the secret of your energy? How do you manage your energy?
I think the secret of my energy is being free, feeling free. So that's like waking up every day with a beginner mind and
Mm-hmm.
starting fresh all the time. And
Mm.
not having things weigh on me like peer pressure, guilt, shame. As much as I can, I try to get rid of those and feel like I'm starting the day new, starting the day fresh, and I have possibilities ahead of me. And I think like when I feel like my energy goes down is more like if I feel like I've got all these pressures or I've got peer pressure or shame or I have to do something for someone. So as much as I can, I try to be in the position where I'm doing things for people because I want to, not because they're guilting me, and just remove a lot of those things that tend to weigh us down.
So you said the peer pressure. You don't have a peer pressure. Is it only now, or you've always been not having that peer pressure?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was super lucky. I mean, lucky and unlucky that I had not the best upbringing. And so I didn't ever have that connection that you get with your parents where they kind of like trade they trade connection for you doing certain things. And then
Mm.
you kind of learn peer pressure initially from your parents and then from kids at school and things like that. And so there just wasn't that trade happening.
Okay.
It just was a different type of, it was a little more of a distance kind of upbringing. And so I just never got that trade. And then I ended up going to one school for seventh and eighth grade, then another school for ninth and 10th, and another for 11th and 12th. So I didn't get to know people so much that, that they would then have this influence over me. So then I kind of got into college and I hadn't really experienced peer pressure yet. And I guess it never really stuck after that. I didn't get trained initially.
When people do not have great parents and they don't have a great childhood, they somehow develop negative mindset, a victim mindset. And how did you get out of that? Did you go through any therapy? I mean, how did you get out of that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that can definitely be something, a direction you can go. And I had other friends that were also having difficult experiences, and they did go in that direction. I think yeah, for me, I did some therapy. I also had some really good friends, and
Hmm.
I I noticed how other people were interacting with people, and some people were like I would be very reactionary to things people would say or assume the worst, etc. And I saw my one friend just was like super chill about stuff, and she had really good parents. And so I said to her, "Will you kind of observe me, and if you notice me doing things that don't seem like normal interaction, can you just kind of let me know so I can train myself?" So that was the main thing, was just kind of that I had a couple friends, and again this beginner mindset where I said, this isn't the way I want to be. I want to be like that, so I'll just copy that.
What do you mean by beginner's mindset? And also, like, for the career that you have had, and we will talk more about that as well. How do you manage to have that beginner's mindset, because you have experience working with a lot of people and different industries as well? So amidst all of that experience, I'm assuming you would want to draw upon that experience but also have a beginner's mindset. How do you balance that two things?
So I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Well into my career, I was working at a hedge fund and responsible for billions of dollars. We were long, we were short, just very high pressure situation. Perfect situation to like rest on all of your past experience. And there
Yeah.
was a company, and they came in and they said to me, we're basically jealous of these other companies that have that effectively like have higher valuations because they're saying they have this types of software, and we make those too. It's just people aren't aware of them. We have those capabilities. So we're going to break out that division into a separate unit, and then it'll help our valuation. And I said, look, I think this is a huge mistake because, just stick to your knitting, do what you've always done. This whole internet thing, this was in 2000. I was like, it's a bubble, it's going to blow over. Just kind of stick to what you're doing, and you're going to survive all this. And they were like, what do you know? We just came through New York to tell you what we're going to do. So then they go off and start reporting this second business unit. And
Mm-hmm.
and so I kind of am like, this is the beginner mind, because I'm like,
Mm.
revenues is just simply price times quantity.
Mm.
So I thought, well, okay, it's a brand new type of software. I should see what I think demand's going to be like. I'm going to go talk to some consultants, talk to some customers. Couldn't find any consultants that had ever seen the software. Couldn't find any customers. And so here's the beginner mind again, where I'm, at one of the top hedge funds, and I'm kind of like, I don't understand how you have revenue when you don't have customers.
Mm. Mm.
And
Yeah.
people are like, oh, Emmy, it's very complicated. You don't understand. And I'm like, no, it's revenue is P times Q. Like, it's that simple. And that's a beginner mind, right?
Mm.
And fast forward 4 months, the CFO and CEO admitted that they had been making up the revenue numbers, and they both went to jail.
Mm.
And so it's like, it's not, deep, complex work. It's really just super simple. And that's where a lot of people miss it. And that was the same thing that I did in semiconductors, betting getting out at the top, getting back in at the bottom, was like super simple concepts like that, because a lot of times you can offset all of the emotion that's happening in markets, in business, by just sticking to very simple concepts.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from the way you dealt with your childhood and this particular situation that you talked about is that you peel off all the layers of complexity and go down to the essential concept, like what you said. Revenue is just P into Q, and if I want to be a better person, just observe whoever was that better person and reflect it. So
Yeah.
it seems like you kind of peel off all the layers of complexity and go down to the basic essential concept and then build up from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Even
Okay.
an interview that I did, I was interviewing for a job, and the guy says to me, "What makes stocks go up?" I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure he's wanting some long, but the truth is that stocks go up because there's more buyers than sellers of that stock.
Mm.
So I said, more
Yeah,
buyers than sellers. And he's like, no, really. And I'm like, no, really.
that's it. That's
That's
it.
it. A bunch of other things drive whether there's more buyers than sellers, but the reason the stock goes up is more buyers than sellers. And so, yes, it's the beginner's mind that takes you to that one core thing, but it's the years of experience that help you define what that one core thing is.
That's good. So you talked about that fund manager, and I believe that you were managing the number one performing fund in the world at some point in time. But
1999, yeah.
yeah, but you didn't start there, or you didn't come there at all. You started as a horse trainer. So tell
Yeah.
me about that. How was that unconventional career that you had from horse trainer to managing the top performing fund in the world?
And there's a thread that runs through all of this, which
Uh huh.
is that the childhood could be a negative or it can be a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened with my childhood is I came out of it overly sensitive.
Mm.
And that's very handy if you're in the stock market and you're trying to read the tea leaves of management and see if they're losing confidence or seeing if they're getting more anxious. And I could, like, I had antennas up all the time. So,
Mm.
it turned out to be super helpful. And it's the same with horses. I can get on horses and I can sense how they're feeling, how they're doing. And yeah, so when I was in college, I rode in the Junior Olympics and was a team gold medalist and wanted to keep pursuing that. And so I moved to Seattle. I worked actually as a litigation paralegal during the day and then rode horses at night and on the weekends, trained with a guy that had trained basically half the US team and half the Canadian team were his students. He was such a good trainer. Um, and so I was training with him, and then my mother passed away. And I was working in this kind of law firm. And I thought I'll just be closer to family and I'll go to San Diego and become a horse trainer. So that's what I did, and just was closer with my family as everyone was grieving my mother's passing. So then my horse trainer, when I was 25, basically said, "You're in your mid 20s and you won't have the same opportunities in your mid 30s." So he said, and he had already asked me years before if he could kind of be my life guide because he felt my parents weren't super interested. And so he just basically said, "I want you to go to graduate school in something, face all your opportunities, and if you still want to be a horse trainer, then I'll support you, but not by default." So then I applied to all these schools and everything like that. And, and the only one that let me in was USC. And thank God, because he basically thinks like he's German and he says, "You will apply to these. And next time I come down 6 weeks later, you'll tell me which one you're in." He doesn't understand that, applications have a season and all this stuff.
Mm.
I was lucky that when he said it, it was right during application season. So
Mm.
next time he came down, I could say, "Yes, I've applied," and all this stuff. And yeah, so it was really funny. So then I got into USC MBA, and I told him that I'm going to business school. And he goes, "Oh, that's horrible. That's not what I meant." He goes, "I wanted to do philosophy or something, to better the world." He's like, "We don't need another business person." That was really funny. Um, and then I had made a bunch of money in the stock market in college, and then kind of had let it, I was kind of more, my dad was running it or this or that, and my mother had passed away. Anyway, and so the balance effectively went down for various reasons, and I've shared it on Twitter and stuff, but I won't go into too much detail, to the point where I entered USC $30,000 in debt with a horse. And so I sold the horse for 30,000. And I went to the head of the brokerage firm and I said, "Can I just run this? I know that your margin requirements are 30%, but the exchange is 50. So can I run this at a 50% margin?
Mm. Mm.
The 30 from the horse is my equity, and then your 30 of debt. So effectively 60,000." And I invested it while I was going to school. They had a Bloomberg there at school. I took the 60, turned it into 120 in 6 months. It was just the beginning of a upcycle after a recession. I was investing in small cap, which runs the most. So I kind of had the wind at my back. And then I paid off the 30, had 90, and then went on from there. So my girlfriend that I had just met at grad school, she's like, "There's people that would pay you to do that." And I had never really even considered a career in investing. I just thought and I said, "Really, this is like playing Pac-Man. I would love to do that." And
Mm.
that's what got me into the industry. Completely random.
Fantastic. Yeah, completely random. Do you believe in luck?
Oh, yes. And I'd far rather be lucky than smart.
That's a very good quote. That's a very good quote. Uh, in LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, you talk a lot about writing your own future or following your own path, and it seems like that is what you have done. And you've kind of navigated through all the difficulties in life, but also rided upon, if I may use the word, the opportunities that came along your way. And you also gave an example of one of your mentees. He was all joined in a elite university. He joined the Goldman Sachs, and then one day he joined the seminary. I have two questions in that particular thing from your own experience, as your life experience, as well as a coach experience. One, generally, as a career, how should I think about writing our own future? And as a parent, how do I enable that with my kids? What should be my, how should I treat them so that they get that particular thing, that they can create their own future?
Yeah. So I'm going to go in a totally different direction. I'm going to answer your question, but in a different way.
Okay.
Most of AI, which AI is super interesting because it's trying to copy what our brains do, right? These
Mm-hmm.
neural networks and everything like that. So most of AI is heading towards an objective and trying to minimize errors towards that objective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot how we live our lives, a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not truly being who we really could be. So
Mm.
this guy who's the head of OpenAI, Dr. Kenneth O. Stanley, invented when he was in a university in Florida, invented something called novelty search. And most of these algorithms for these AI have been around forever. They've been around 20 years, 25 years, but novelty search is newer and different. And what he basically told the computer to do is that every step you take should be something new, should be trying something new.
Okay.
And you can imagine that if you do the search area unlimited, the computer will never have an answer because
Mm.
it's always something new. But what they found is when you have kind of some borders on the search area, it can complete a maze 4 times as fast. It can learn to walk 4 times as fast. And if you think about it, when you're just learning to walk, one of the most important things is to be able to do this, which is oscillate,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way you learn to oscillate is by falling over. So if you're trying to minimize your errors, you punish the robot for falling over and the robot never learns to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to live my life like that novelty search algorithm. Not an unlimited expanse, but trying new things, being open, having this beginner mind. And so with that, then everything that comes along, I have a general idea. So for novelty search, they say you are trying to get to the moon. So you give a big thing that you want, not
Okay.
explore the whole universe. So you have some kind of
Mm.
goal, but it's a big goal, or it's like explore DNA in the area of cancer. And then it can come back and say, hey, I found all these patterns in RNA. Hey, I found all this stuff. The same way that when the US had the goal to go to the moon, we had this huge like spate of innovations because and it wasn't that we were pushing ourselves to innovate and learn new technologies, but we had to because we were trying to get to the moon. So with anything that I'm thinking about with a career, I'm thinking I generally want to be doing this type of work with these types of people, and I'm open to how that looks. I'm open to what the different paths might be to that goal.
Mm. So what you are saying is define a broad contour, but within it, try to do novel things. Try to
Yeah,
do newer things in every iteration that you are
exactly.
working on.
Instead of
Mm.
trying to minimize your errors all the time, don't
Mm.
worry so much about making mistakes. Try worry more about being open-minded and trying new things, especially
That
early in your career.
that's a very well articulated position, Emmy. And some of us probably do in one fashion or the other, or one element of that. But when you combine all the three, having a broad contour, try new things, do not try to eliminate all the errors. I think when you combine all of the three, I think it is inevitable that you will have that kind of a career, or it is inevitable that you will have that kind of a life, interesting life, and
Yeah.
your own path, your own path. Okay.
Yeah. And
So
if
that.
you want to play with this, he actually has a game online where you can
Mhm.
try out the novelty search algorithm, by playing a game that breeds pictures to each other. It's called Pick Breeder, picbreeder.org.
Okay.
And you can play with this. And what they found is that all the other algorithms that basically look at an objective and minimize errors are good at incremental improvements.
Mm,
This algorithm mirrors innovation and evolution. Or if
mm.
you want to do something interesting and big and different and you want to change something, you don't want to be living your life objective focus, minimizing errors.
Very valid point. And every time I talk to you, I learn something new. And we have talked only for about 15 minutes or so, and I've learned something new already. Thanks, Emmy, for that. uh, when we talked earlier, you talked about showing up for success. I've replayed it in my mind multiple times.
So we're talking about bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit, I'm going to back up for a second because a lot of it has to do with this beginner mindset again,
Mm-hmm.
which is that I was basically started the year where I was planning on doing a marathon in Maui. I had already invited my stepdaughter, but then my other girlfriend, was like, "Hey, you did a 50K for your 50th last year. I want to do one for my 50th this year. Will you come do the 50K?" They were a week apart, so I thought, I don't want to let my stepdaughter down. So I thought, okay, this could be an interesting experiment. And this is like turning things around. Instead of saying, oh, I'm pressured because I got to do a 50K one weekend and then fly to Hawaii and run a marathon, I think, oh, this is a great experiment at staying in my peak state for an entire week. And, I've read about that. I'd love to see if I can do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so then that went really well. So then I thought, well, what other 50Ks are out there? And I signed up for all, I thought I would just do an entire spring of like mountain 50Ks. So I was going, Jackson Hole, and anyway, just all these mountain 50Ks. And the only thing with doing that when at the time I was 51 years old, is that you have to stay pretty disciplined about your training schedule so you don't get injured. So in that, I was basically doing sprints every Tuesday, hill repeats Monday, Thursday, that kind of thing, right? Really a little regimented for my style, but that's what I needed. And my sprints start going really well. So I thought, well, it's not like I'm going to get any younger, so I should see if there's some kind of sprint competition I should enter. Why not? I've always, wanted to try track and field. Why not? And so I looked it up, and there's not a lot of people that are in their mid 50s that decide to go try track and field. So you don't even have to like qualify. You can just go to the US Masters Championship for the United States. I was like, well, that's really cool. And it happened to be in San Diego. See, better lucky than smart. So, and it was about 5 weeks away. So I go on the internet and sign up for it, and then go find a coach to teach me how to run off blocks because I didn't know that. Look at the different pieces of what I got to do and who can help me learn how to do it. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to this US Masters Championship anyway. Well, I wonder what else they have. And I see they've got bodybuilding. And I thought, not that I really ever wanted to do it, but I thought, it's probably 85% overlap with the workouts I'm going to be doing. One, I'm going to try to make my legs big. The other, I'm going to try to make my legs explosive. Yeah, close enough. So I call that guy, and apparently I have to hire a pose coach and I don't know, pay a lot of money for like bikinis that are about this big, and go on a diet, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I figured all that out, and I signed up for everything because I asked the organizer, and he said, well, you've never competed, so you can do age group, open, amateur, you could do everything. And I didn't know the difference between physique, figure, and bikini. So I signed up for all of those, just the whole lot of them. And figured just, I had to pay to get my body spray tanned 7 times over and pay for makeup and hair and all that. So this way I'm amortizing them over kind of more walks down the stage. And anyway, so I show up, and they basically said nobody had showed up for women's physique. So I ended up winning the North American champion just by showing up.
Wow. Yeah. So that showing up mentality, that I'm here, let me try everything that I can try, get my hand on, and I can amortize whatever that I have put in, the effort, money, all of that, into all of the different competitions that are in the stage now. That particular mindset, have you applied anywhere else?
Oh, pretty much everywhere. I just think most of the time I figure I don't really know what I'm doing, but I try to figure, okay, so somebody brought me up there, so I'm just going to give it my best.
Mm.
And that's pretty much, for instance, even when I was running, when I got the fund to run,
Hmm.
I came out of an insurance company. So I was just kind of running internal money for an insurance company. This mutual fund company hired me, be a tech analyst for a mid cap portfolio manager. And then the chief investment officer said, well, now that we have you and you're so good at tech, we should make a tech fund. And what we'll do is we'll take all the people in the whole firm that are focused on tech, like the people in Asia focus on tech and whatever, and we'll all get you guys into a room and you'll pick the best stocks, right? And then it's going to be this, and it's going to be great. Well, I mean, that's kind of like management by consensus. And so then about a month in, we were top 10% in the nation. And she calls a meeting and she's like, what in the world is wrong? And I'm like, I think it's good. Top 10%. Awesome. She's like, no, I hired you because you're the smartest tech analyst in the country. You should be number one. I
Mm.
said, well, number one doesn't happen from consensus. It just doesn't. So she said, fine, everybody else out, you run the fund. And that's how I got the fund. But I wasn't in there kind of, I don't know, trying to get the fund. I was just kind of standing in my truth, just saying, you can't get to number one with consensus
With
voting. I mean,
consensus.
it's just not going to happen. And then the next thing I
One.
know, I'm running the thing. And then I'm thinking, what? I don't know anything about, running a public mutual fund. And then I thought, well, that's above my pay grade. She thought I could do it, so I'm just gonna go do it.
Fantastic. As I said, Emmy, even this podcast that I'm doing is a result or a derivative of talking to you earlier, when we had one-on-one conversation earlier, is when you shared that particular thing. And I was looking at what are all the things that coaches do, what are the things that I can do. One of the things that came up was podcast, and I said, I can't do this, my voice is not good, or whatever, like, there are tons of reasons why you can't do that. I said, Emmy said, show up for success, just
Good.
sign up.
That's
So
awesome.
so I said, okay, I will sign up for. I looked at who are the people who are interviewing people, how are they doing it. I will mimic it. And I signed up for a software, and here we are. This is the 25th episode that I'm doing.
That's so
So
awesome. Congratulations.
thank you very much for sharing that particular story and inspiring. I'm sure other people have inspired as well, but at least you inspired me to do this. So
Oh,
thank you very
thank
much for
you.
this.
Yeah, sometimes people take it a little bit too far. I have one mentee, and well, like I've been running for so long, I kind of have a base, right? And I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what shoes I like and whatever. So some days I'll just have good energy, and I'll have been running maybe 8 miles a day, something like that. And someday I'll come out and I'll have a free day, and I'll just start running, and I'll run 30 miles. I won't have planned it. I just start running, and then if I need more water, I stop at a gas station, get some water, and I just some days and just wander around, and then I've clocked 30 miles. Anyway, so he gets some brand new tennis shoes, and he's like, "Yeah, I just went out to just run." He's like, he goes, 15 miles in, I couldn't walk at all. He goes, I had to go to the doctor, the podiatrist, my shins were wrecked. I'm like, well, yeah. So there's some combination of building a base and building some fundamental understanding of what you're going to do. And
Yeah.
then some of just like having a beginner mindset for sure.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind whenever I try out a new experiment. uh, okay, you probably because of the fund that you ran, you have worked with some of the top leaders, both from corporates as well as probably in politics as well, like John Chambers of Cisco, Martha Stewart, name it. The people you have worked with all of them, and
Yeah.
you have. And I think at one point,
Ross Perot, and
yeah,
yeah, and
and
Paul Volcker, who was the ex-Fed chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've directly worked for 4 billionaires as well.
Yeah. And then I think at one time you also shared a stage with Bill Clinton, I suppose, or
Yes.
you were, yeah, right. Uh, in working with all of these leaders, what did you learn about leadership from them, and what are the qualities of a great leader?
I hate to keep harping on this, Joseph, but they question themselves.
Mm,
I just wrote a big piece on, and questioning yourself goes back to that beginner mindset. Could I be wrong?
mm-hmm,
And, so that's a huge one, is just this beginner mindset, questioning themselves. And I wouldn't say it's all of them, but some of them have incredible listening skills.
mm.
And the listening skills gives you connection to people with power and gives you influence, which is a common trait among leaders and billionaires.
So that listening, and we can go deeper into each of those things as well, but I want to go into that listening because you also talked a lot about that listening, uh, active listening, perceptive listening. What are they, and how can I develop my listening skills?
So it's funny because it's so simple.
Hmm.
There's a few tricks. Um, One I call what not why. So whenever
Okay.
you ask a question, try to ask it with the word what at the front of it instead of why. Often when we
Mm,
say why, we ask someone why, they go into explaining mode and very quickly they'll go into a defensive posture. So if
mm,
the goal of listening is to build a connection with another person, what is a much better? Of course, you can be like, "What in the world were you thinking?" and make someone feel defensive, but in general, what is really is a great word to use. So I think
mhm,
that's really key. Second is pause 15 to 30 seconds and really count 1,000, 2, 1,000. So someone's talking, you think they're done, just let there be a moment of silence. And they
mhm,
often, I found when I was talking to management teams, that would be the moment where they would share the real nugget. That's the
mm,
moment where you're showing someone you're creating space for them.
mm.
And the third is something that I call almost like hopscotch, two down, one across. So when asking a follow up question, you say, "What's your favorite vacation?" And then I
Mm,
say, "St. John." And then you
mhm,
say, "Why St. John? What is it about St. John that you really love?" "Oh, I love swimming in St. John."
mm,
Now, if you keep going down one more, well, who did you swim with, right? And now it's a little personal. So
mm,
what you do is we've gone down to what's your favorite vacation? What do you like about St. John? Now I've said swimming. Now you go across, you go adjacent, and you say, have you always swam?
mm,
Often when people go down two, they think, oh, now I'm feeling like this is too personal or too, and they exit, they switch to, they go, oh, what are you doing next weekend? And then the person feels dropped or unheard. But if they go down one more deeper, the person feels like, start. And so if you're trying to build that bridge of connection, thinking about two down, one across is really helpful to feel like you care, you're asking follow ups. And I've done this in seminars and people that have never met before, 90 seconds in, it seems like they've known each other forever.
there's a very good master class, I think, for a podcast host. I think I should listen this and try to practice this as much as possible, I think. So thank you for sharing that particular thing. uh, Now, like, couple of last questions, Emmy. We have been talking for about 40 minutes. It doesn't look like that we
Such
spoke for
fun.
40
Such
minutes.
fun. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You don't seem to slow down. And you said you ran the marathon and You participated in all of those sports events when you were 51. Do you think, we should retire the concept of retirement?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there was a new study out this year that said that our metabolism is the same from age 20 to age 60. So there is no
Ah.
reason. It's not like we start slowing down and we get worse from 40 to 50. We're just all telling ourselves that. And like if you mentally slow down and you physically slow, you'll slow down. So, they had a different study where they took a group of people that were in their 80s that were on walkers and all this stuff, and they put them in a kind of a closed residence where everyone moved into houses and stuff, and they lived there for 3 months. And they
Hmm.
put newspapers in from 20 years before and TV shows from 20 years before. And people were moving around. They stopped using their walkers. I mean, it's an incredible study. It is an incredible study. So there's so much about this that is in your mind. This
Mm.
year, let's see, in January of 2022, I'm going to run another 50K because the same girlfriend that we did it when she was 50, she wants to run it again. So we're going to do that together. And then another girlfriend of mine who's really never exercised in her life except for just light walking. We've decided I talked her into doing the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is 35,000 vertical feet and 85 miles of hiking in 9 days. And then I talked two other girlfriends. So they're 57, 55, 60, and myself, I'm 55. We're all going to do the Tour de Mont Blanc next year.
You are
It's
an evil
never
person.
too late. It is never too late. Never too late.
Thank you. I'm going to challenge. Of course, I think so. How do you, Emmy? You talked about the beginner's mindset, and then like this 55 people, 55 age, 55, 57, they're all doing it. But you also talked about the one of your mentee picked up the tennis shoes, ran, he injured himself. How should we think about that balance? That
Yeah.
yes, at 57 I can do it, 55 I can do it, but also not fatal, not
You
injuring
got to be
myself.
ready. Yeah, exactly. You got to get yourself ready. And that's where I was talking about have a beginner mindset, but build a foundation. So my
Hmm.
girlfriend said, she's like, I want to do that. That sounds great, but you need to give me a training plan.
Hmm.
And I said, great, let's train together. And so I built out a training plan. It's a 1 year training plan. We do hill repeats on Wednesdays, we do long hikes on Sundays, and we're going to do that for 50 weeks.
Hmm.
And then, towards later on, we'll have multiple days of hill repeats. So, by the time she goes, she will she'll be climbing 4,000 feet a couple times a week. So then, going and doing that in Switzerland will be fine. So anyway, that's kind of, it's just that I think the point that the reason that I'm able to just like learn a bunch of languages and do a bunch of sports at a high level is because what people don't realize is it's not that much more effort. Once you've done one thing well, like once I had competed in the World Cup trials for the US for dressage, I realized I learned how to be excellent
Hmm.
at sport. And then
Hmm.
so then I asked myself the same questions and found the same experts in endurance running. And then I did the same thing in track and field and the same thing in bodybuilding. It's like, okay, who do I need? What are the elements that I need? And how do I put this together? And how do I get my body ready? And I think a lot of people just get so overwhelmed. They just think, oh,
Hmm.
this is going to be this, unattainable thing. And they don't realize it's just like 10% more effort.
Hmm. So you talked about two things, and I want to touch upon it before we forget. You talked about learning to learn, and you have applied it. It seems that you have applied it across the different areas in your life, whether it is horse training or running a management fund, the top fund, or marathon running, or for bodybuilding, or any of those kinds of. So you have learned to learn. So that compress that to the fundamental core piece, and also try to find out a training plan and building a base out of that. So that's one thing that you've done. Uh, can you go a little deeper into what is your learning plan looks like, and what's your framework for learning?
Have you ever seen those cats and they see a string, right? And they start
Uh-huh.
pulling on the string.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing, the sweater is unraveling, but they're
Yeah.
just pulling on the string. And that is the energy. I have this energy of curiosity. I just keep pulling on the string.
Mm.
So, for instance, I mean, the whole bodybuilding thing happened because I was pulling on a string.
Mm.
I was training for ultra marathons. I happened to be sprinting on Tuesdays. And then I was like, wow, that went really well. What else should I do? Like,
Mm.
just like literally a curiosity of a cat, and it's just going all of the time. I
Mm.
see a really interesting podcast, or I see somebody do something really well that I don't know about. I think, well, how could I do that?
Mm.
And I think the differentiator is that I don't have something in my mind saying, don't even try.
Mm. Mm.
I still have an imposter syndrome, like what I said, well, I mean, I didn't really like say, oh, I should have this fund to run, or I should run, I just kind of like, but I was available for it and I didn't say no. So kind of I overcome my imposter by avoiding saying no. But my main thing is just a general curiosity of just kind of bumping around and what else can I do and what string. Ooh, that's an interesting string. I'm going to pull on that, see what happens. That's pretty much it. And that takes you, and like, company says, here's our revenues. Oh, that's an interesting string. I call Enron. Somebody said, oh, this is a great company. You got to invest in them. This is 1996. And I called them up, and this is before the World Wide Web existed. And so you couldn't get a
Mm.
annual report online. So they got to mail it to you. So I call them up and I say, can you mail me the annual report? And they said, which one? And I said, how many do you have? And they said, five. And I was like, all for the same year? They said, yes. I'm like, send them all. That's
Mm.
like a daily thing, right? Where it's just like, well, that's interesting. Tell me more, right? You're just pulling on a string. Like, you have five annual reports. Tell me more. All for the same year. So it's like, it's these, and it even goes back to coach training, where
Mm-hmm.
the coach trainers say, we teach smart people to ask dumb questions.
Mm.
So if you're wondering how to instill curiosity and this endless energy, start by asking far simpler, far like ask the dumbest questions you can. Ask questions like, what's that like? What's next? It's far less work, and everyone else starts doing all the work because
Yes.
they have to answer everything.
Fantastic. uh, we can keep on going, Emmy. Every time I ask you a question, I want to ask five follow-up questions, and then I want to keep going in that. But we don't have time. I don't want to take too much of your time. Uh, Final three questions. What's the kindest thing anyone has done for you?
I have had so many people do so many kind things. I mean, I feel incredibly blessed.
Mm.
My number one is that person that I mentioned. Her name was Lori, that helped me reprogram my mind and my interactions with people in college. And that completely changed my life because that meant that I could learn to connect with people and have a more normal, connected life instead of an isolated one. And that was all her.
Mm.
It's a lot
So
of
I'm,
work. I
I'm
mean, it was 2 years of watching me and saying, "Okay, Emmy, you just won this. You should call your parents. You just did this. You should do, just kind of like here's how normal people interact." Just super patient, and it was a long haul for her, and incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing it. I think some of our friends play a larger role in our life without really thinking or without really realizing the magnanimity of that particular work that they have done in our life. So
So much so.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. What's your definition of living a good life?
Freedom of choice.
Hmm. Okay. Where can people find you online?
They can find me anywhere they are. I'm everywhere. So you can look up my10min.com. Emmysobieski.com is my own personal website. And then they can find me, Emmy Sobieski, on LinkedIn, same handle on Twitter, and same on Facebook, as well as my10min on Facebook. So, yeah, and small Instagram presence, but I don't recommend it. I'm not in there very often.
Okay, I will link to all of these things on the show notes. Emmy, thank you very much for taking your time to talk to me. I think we need to have a follow up session, but we will schedule it later. Thank you
I'd
very much
love
for
it.
being here.
I'd love it. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for having me, Joseph. It's a pleasure, and you're a great host.
thank you. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please share what you liked in our conversations on social media and tag us. Have a life of wins.